Okay, so let's welcome our next speaker.
Hetarth Shah.
Yes, Hetarth. And he'll be talking about,
You don't need to know Julia to contribute.
yes, very exciting.
Yes, thank you. Hey everyone, it's great to be here. Basically, my talk will be about you don't need to know Julia to contribute. A little bit about myself is I'm a software developer and an open source contributor and enthusiast from India. Uh, Quick question: raise your hands if you ever feel like if you don't know enough to start contributing to an open source project. Oh, okay. Well, you are not alone, to be very honest. When I first dipped my toes into Julia's ecosystem, I also felt kind of similar. Like people were doing all sorts of wild things like quantum computations, physics simulations, and whatnot in Julia. Uh, Basically, this is how I felt, right? So, yeah, but that this thing didn't halted me from contributing to Julia's ecosystem. I still contributed a lot, and today I'll be sharing with you some bits for new contributors and some for maintainers on how they can improve the ecosystem altogether. And with that, let's start with our talk, which is you don't need to know Julia to contribute. Okay, so we will divide this talk in the following parts. We will start with contributor, then go slowly towards the maintenance role, and then at last we'll take some what holds people really back and some final takeaways with the talk. All right. Okay, so new contributors often think that they need to know everything before they start contributing to a project, right? And that might somewhat might makes them feel intimidated, right? But to be very honest, it's an obvious response from their side since they think that what if I mess something up or it will do more harm than good to the project, right? But this is a myth, is what I would like to think. Since open source by its own nature, it is expected that someone new to a project or anything does not have the entire idea of that thing, right? And there are people who are ready to help them guide, right? So basically, if you are a contributor and if you think that okay, what if I break something, it's basically it's okay to make mistakes are a crucial part of learning. Okay, don't do this, right? Yeah. Okay, for simplicity we will divide the types of contributions into three major types, which will be contributing beyond code, which is aka no code contributions. There will be less code big impact, which is some amount of code, so how you can do less code but still have somewhat big impact in the community. And at last we will go with advanced code contributions, which are high code contributions. Okay, coming to no code contributions, this is basically for folks who don't know Julia or don't know anything about open source, and still while learning Julia how they can help in making the ecosystem grow larger and everything. For less code, basically it's people who have some amount of programming experience or open source experience, whether in Julia or in any other language. Still how they can contribute to Julia and make some big impacts. And advanced code contributions, I think it's pretty self-explanatory for the ones with sufficient knowledge of programming and open source. Let's take it bit by bit. Okay, let's start with contributing beyond code, which is no code contributions. First on the list is improving documentation. This is has been like chewed many times. Everyone knows, okay, this is the best starting point to start in any ecosystem. Is basically, well, let's take Julia for example. While you are learning Julia, right? You are a new contributor. You are excited about doing something in Julia community, but you don't know enough. So logical steps would be you start to learn Julia, then you once you have somewhat of a grasp on Julia, right, then you will think that okay, now I should start contributing. But there's no rule saying that okay, while you are learning Julia you cannot contribute, right? So while you are learning Julia, you might stumble upon a simpler way to define something, maybe spot a clearer example than the one in the docs, or something that just makes more sense, right? Well, this is your movement. You can just go ahead, make a PR, open an issue, join in a discussion on the repo. Folks here in the Julia ecosystem are very helpful and they will do their best to guide you to make your first contributions. Another one is translating content. This thing is often overlooked. Basically, if you are multilingual, your language skills can open doors for countless others, right? You can help people who don't know a particular language help uh, basically learn something new in their native language, right? By translating documents, tutorials, websites, you're always making open source more inclusive and accessible for a global audience. It may seem small, but it has a lasting impact. Okay, now we come to organizing events and creating tutorials and blogs. Organizing events is, maybe you are not writing much Julia code yet, but you are curious, you want to talk about Julia, explore some ideas, what others are doing. Well, that is a great way to start, right? The best thing you can do is volunteer at something, let's say like JuliaCon, or even better, you can host your own event. It could be like a small local Julia meetup, or if you're studying in a college or university, you can host your own hackathon or normal get together for Julia talks and everything. Right? Doesn't have to be big. Just getting people together makes a difference. These efforts really help grow Julia's presence and build the community around it. Creating tutorials and blogs is basically, you might be thinking that how can I write a tutorial if I'm still learning? And to that, I would say you actually have a huge advantage in this case, is basically you bring the perspective of an ethic. Let me explain that a bit more in the next slide. Okay, so ethic and emic. Let's go this one by one. Let's start with the definition. So ethic basically means that outsider's perspective, analyzing something from an outsider's perspective, right? If you are new to something, you wouldn't know the weird quirks, the error messages and everything. Your brain might not be used to all the things, all the ways that things are done in a particular ecosystem. So would be the perfect candidate to find these pain points in the ecosystem, right? And that, it means like your questions, your confusions, they are not weakness. Instead, observations, your struggles are extremely valuable for the community. If it confuses you, you can blog about it, write about it, and it will also help the community to find pain points better. Okay, let's move forward to less code, big impact, which is basically low code contributions. I divided it in two types. Basically, low code contributions. There is, first of all, it's testing. It contains platform or OS based testings, unit testings, manual testings. Right. It's really very straightforward. You can just download a pre-release version of Julia, or in that matter, any version of Julia. And if you break something, which is encouraged actually, you can just report a bug directly. I am sure folks will be helpful to fix that up quickly. If it's a security bug, then obviously it will get prioritized. Unit tests are small focused tests that check specific parts of the code. Writing these tests help make the software stronger and catch edge cases before they cause problems, right? The more tests, the better is usually what I hear in the community. Sometimes maintainers don't always have access to like every operating system or platform in existence, right? So what happens is some tiny bugs mislip during the release or after the release, right? Because they weren't tested on that particular platform. It's like, because who hasn't hit a bug that shows up only on Windows 10 32-bit safe mode on a full moon. So yeah, if you got access to whatever, like if it's a single platform or multiple platforms, chime in, test stuff. It will help maintainers a lot. It will also reduce their load on making it accessible for every platform and operating system. Issues. So if you are reporting bugs, clearly you are creating issues, right? They both go hand in hand. So, but let's take a step further and also help the maintainers in organizing these issues too. Like, okay, as a contributor, you are creating issues and everything. You are not alone. There are so many contributors who are creating issues on a daily basis, right? For let's say a single individual or multiple individuals, we'll call them maintainers, it might increase their cognitive load as to, because they don't know what issue belongs to what category. Is it a front end issue? Is it a back end issue? For example, is it something core or compiler based? Is it something platform specific? So what you can do as a contributor is you can clearly label them or help labeling issues which you know. Right. You can outline the particular perfect reproduction steps. Maybe add a small screen share video of you reproducing the issue. That helps a lot, and it really uh, helps maintainers organizing these issues by priority severities, so they can focus on the important ones and not get lost in the chaos. Right. Now, coming to advanced code contributions, which are high code contributions, you might ask that if someone's already at this stage, right, they know everything, they are experienced in open source and programming, so they would probably know that where and what to contribute. But there's a catch. So let's say someone has strong programming skills and open source contribution experience, but in a different language or in a different programming language. Getting into Julia they might still feel a little bit scared or intimidated because they don't know the ins and outs of Julia or any other things, right? They have been accustomed to their own ecosystem in which they have been contributing, and they have large amount of experience. So while they are getting adjusted, what they can do is they can share insights from these different communities, the ways of how these communities operate and do stuff to Julia to improve Julia, right? So for example, VS Code has how VS Code handles feature requests, how Laravel triages issues, or even even Julia has a very good contribution page, right? So they can transfer these knowledge from other domains to a particular domain or the Julia ecosystem itself. Okay, now let's move forward as a maintainer, how you can help making the door more wide, more open for everyone, right? So some common things as a maintainer you may have already heard or know or just practice is basically being kind and patient in reviews, adding relevant labels like good first issue, beginner friendly to issues. Another good way is recognizing the efforts. Highlighting contributors' work publicly helps build confidence and strengthens their connection to the project. I mean, who doesn't like a little bit of praise if they have like done some amount of work, right? So it really helps build the contributors' passion towards the project. It makes them more integrated to the project, and it encourages the contributor more to contribute more to the project. Okay, let's talk about how the inside of a contributor, inside the mind of a contributor works. Sorry. Uh, when guidance is a little bit limited, right? Contributors rely on trial and error, figuring out setup, structure, contribution flow themselves, right? This slows down progress, the time to first commit and everything, and it builds more friction for a project, right? Yeah, sometimes it also does this. Both maintainer and contributors are looking for dogs. So let's take a look at the decision journey of a potential contributor through that thought process. I made a small graph. Oh, yeah. So let's say I'm a contributor. I visit Julia's website. I notice a typo or issue. I search for the GitHub or edit page link. What happens? If the page doesn't have the repo or edit this page link, right? What the contributor might do is they may drop off because they couldn't find where they can post this issue, where they can discuss this with someone else, right? Let's say if they do find the repository, what they would do is they would look for the readme, ideally, check if there is a how to contribute section or not. If there is not a how to contribute section, they may give up or explore blindly. Usually they try to explore blindly first, trialing and erroring, but it may they may get frustrated with this and they may eventually give up. Like, let's say they find a contributing section. They will visit, they will read that, they will visit issues pages. They will check if the issue already exists. If it exists, they will obviously add a comment or follow the existing thread saying that, okay, I have also faced this issue myself and I would also help to solve this. Let's say if they don't find an issue, what they will do is they may open a new issue. They'll check if there is an issue template. As I say, if there are issue templates, it also helps potential contributors to easily know how a particular repo follows a convention of making stuff more easier for the maintainers to see also, right? If there is an issue template, they will follow that template. They will hopefully write all the steps and everything, reproduction steps. If it doesn't, ideally they will also try to submit a free form issue. Now free form issue is basically the repo is on the mercy of the contributor. If they want, they could just write like they could write an entire book which details how to reproduce steps. And if they want, they can also write just a single line or just open with a title of the issue, right? Which is not super helpful, but it is somewhere, at least they are uh, doing some help. Both of this after both of this, they will check the readme. If the readme has like a dev setup, structure, practices, the conventions which the repo follows, right? After that, they would basically, is the setup clear to them, right? Isn't Are the steps clearly mentioned in the repo or not? If the setup is not clearly mentioned, what they would do is they would try to set it up themselves. Obviously they will do the trial and error setup thing. This may end up getting the contributor might not be able to set up the repo or the project successfully, so they might get frustrated and they would just leave that, and okay, someone else who is more knowledgeable in the project would do. So that could drop off a potential contributor, right? Yeah, if the setup is clear, they will set up the project smoothly. Or let's say with the trial and error setup, they were able to set up the project smoothly. What they will do is they will implement the solution, check for open PRs, check open PRs for style and conventions. If the repo follows any style or conventions for the PR list, open a PR. If they receive a feedback, right? If the PR, sometimes what happens is the PR, some people open PR and the PR just gets stalled for like an year, 6 months, a year, 2 years, right? Nothing is happening. So they might get again frustrated, feel stuck or ignored, and they might just drop off. And the PR gets keep open, also increases noise in the repository. If if they receive feedback, they will make appropriate changes to the PR and update the PR and PR merge. Right. So this is sort of how a contributor thinks also in the journey of the contributor in making that first contribution. Right. Let's get the presentation. Okay. Hmm. Now, another good thing which you can do is, as I touched a little bit about this before also, you can, as a maintainer, you can find inspirations from other communities. So open source is really vast and has many communities, innovative projects worth learning from. Right, let's see some examples. VS Code, for example, uses a community voting system to prioritize new feature requests. So what they do is, let's say if I want to add some new feature in VS Code, right? It would I would create the issue, and there will be automated message in there saying that, okay, if this issue receives or feature request receives like more than 20 or 30 upvotes, right, then only we will add this as a feature. And if you want, you can also help as a contributor in the implementation of this feature word. Laravel, which is a full stack PHP framework, it's pretty famous in the web community, encourages proposing new features via GitHub discussion. So rather than directly opening a GitHub issue, they first tell newcomers to open a discussion, have some talk about it. Is this feature really needed in the framework or project, or is this something worthy of a package or a small plugin, right? Adonis.js is another framework. They showcase great demos and tutorials from the people who have created them in something they call cookbooks. And lastly, of course, Julia also has a very well-designed contribute page with new guidance for newcomers. It also talks a little bit about what we talked here today too. Okay. Okay. So what holds people back? As I said earlier, the main concern, there are two main concerns which NOI contributors or hold new contributors is basically what if I make mistakes, to which I would say that everyone makes mistakes. Okay, it is what makes us humans. Don't be afraid of it. Instead, take it as a learning opportunity. And another one is, what if my work isn't good enough? I mean, we all start somewhere, right? Like no one is telling you to, submit a PR which is worthy of NASA's coding principles or anything, right? So on the other hand, always be open to feedback as a contributor. Be open to feedback, listen, and be open to change. Some final takeaways you can is basically start small, start today. Don't be fearful. Every contribution counts, no matter how small. Like even if you're translating content, you are improving documentations, fixing a spelling error, grammatical issue, whatever. Every contribution counts. Diverse contributions grow communities. Create a blog, tutorial, website. No matter if you are starting new in Julia or you are already experienced, right? And lastly, you don't need to know Julia to contribute. And yeah, I will leave it and quote, the true power of open source lies in the idea that no one builds alone. Thank you, everyone. You have been a fantastic audience. That's all. Floor is open for questions. If anyone.
Thank you so much for the talk. We have time for questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I did come a bit later, so you might have already covered this, but we're all busy. So when I have a new student who's creating a package, that's the contributor, the person that wants to get
Mhm.
other folks to come in.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll now have this talk in the recording to show them, but do you have a checklist? Do you have something that's part of package templates? Do you have something that does all of these community building boilerplate so that I can be a bit lazier because I'm already kind of tired?
Yeah. So the thing is, every community, every repo is different, right? Uh, I would say that there is somewhat also a maintenance bias involves in following style conventions, right? You might want to make your code look some specific way, right? So most of the rules are basically what the maintainer of the project creates, right? Those are the best suited for them. But as I said earlier in the presentation or talk, is that uh, there are lots of projects in open source communities which are very big, right? You can take inspirations from them. They already have issue templates created, feature request templates created. GitHub, for example, also does have a issue template, ready-made issue templates, right? So you can use that probably to make process more smoother. Thank you.
I actually have a question. So, very interesting. In the open source community, we always use the language of Git and GitHub to talk about like contributions. What do you think? Like, how should we communicate with people that are not as familiar or as into the open source community so we can actually bring them, because sometimes they have a lot to contribute. They're just not as familiar or into the open source community?
Okay, so the main thing is you need to communicate to them that okay, coding is not the whole and soul of contributing to open source, right? They can create blog. They can even find something interesting to talk about, which is, let's say, used by Julia. Like for example, quantum simulation. I know there were great workshops yesterday also on quantum simulations and stuff. So yeah, the main thing is that we need to help them understand that okay, coding is not the only contribution that matters. They can translate content if they are multilingual. They can translate content. They can create blogs, websites, which just showcases Julia, or they can just put up a tweet regarding Julia, right? I'm sure folks from Julia's ecosystem might be excited to retweet it and do stuff. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Very interesting. Do you have more questions? If not, let's thank our speaker.
Thank you everybody. It was fantastic. Guys, enjoy the rest of the conference.
And I think the Quantum Mini Symposium is going to start here, like in just a minute. So if you want